Hello, friends. Bible study. But first, a remarkable thing happened. As I was sitting here, figuring out exactly how much of this I wanted to read for the purposes of discussion, I can sit from where I'm sitting, I can see my front door. And what I've got on my front door is, because there's these glass panes for privacy, I have these stickers up to make it look like stained glass. And a bird, likely a dove, because the size of what I saw, I could see the shadow of a dove flying, much in that shape that I actually have on the Adventures in Pixieland labels for anything where it's got, where it's been anointed or blessed, and, because I'm an ordained minister. So anything I've blessed, any product I've blessed has this dove shape on it. And that was the shape that was outside the glass in shadow. So fun times. Bible study, NIV, Luke 24 through 43. It's going to be longer, but it's important. Now, what's happened up to this point in the Bible is Jesus has been crucified. He died. The women have seen, gone to the tomb and seen that his body's not there. They saw the angels. They came back. They talked to the group of the apostles. Everybody's still mourning. And the apostles, of course, they don't believe that the women have seen the angels. They feel like they're like, could he? Because what we're thinking he is a warrior king, not the Messiah in the sense of, we're going to get you all into heaven. He's constantly having to explain the parables to them because they're thinking any minute now he's just going to lead us off to war. And then he's arrested and he's crucified. And the reason he thinks that is because if you go back into the Old Testament, what you see is a series of what they like to call judges or prophets. Prophets are specific here in the Bible. Okay, prophets are indeed people with psychic abilities, but they're talking directly to God. They're not talking to the spirits, ancestors. I mean, the voice they're hearing is the Archangel Metatron, but he's carrying the word of God. It's direct communication about what God is telling you and that he wants you to do. That's the difference between a psychic and a prophet. A psychic who might have visions of the future is getting a general broadcast that God puts out about the thing because he wants us to go be curious. He wants us to go look. He wants us to ascend, to be better people. So they're looking for a warrior who's going to yield, like the Ark of the Covenant or something like that, and overthrow the Romans. So they're like, what is this? Because they weren't expecting that. A lot of the teachings in different parts of the Old Testament are, there's parts that are literal and parts that are parable. And they were just thinking his parables were just that, moral lessons and not something that's actually going to happen. Not like that. So they didn't have the full concept of who he was to have the complete faith in him in the first place. Okay? They eventually understand, and this is the moments here where they're going to understand because he's risen and he's just not hanging out with them yet. Now, the same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. And of course, because, they're grieving. And when we're grieving and when things aren't right, talking to each other is what we do. It makes us feel better. That's, confession is good for the soul when it's something that's bad. But, what you talk about, stresses that you talk about are shared. The other person then helps you transmute that energy, that sadness that's inside you. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked among them. But they were kept from recognizing him. So he didn't look like himself. He looked like something else, which is, the term is like earth angels. If you want to think of it as the afterlife job, a principal. A principal is like a foot soldier, of God. Of course, we're talking about Jesus, and I'm not saying Jesus is the principle. I'm just saying the concept is there. Yeah, you can see it on TV in things like Good Omens is a good example of that, on, with the slightly funny side of it. If you're like the dark and scary, which I recommend, what you seek, so shall you find. You kind of stay away from the dark and scary. Then you're looking at Constantine. He also deals with the idea of influencers. They appear however it is we are most comfortable with. Just sort of like how the angels do, because this is essentially what it is. Except if you think of angels as a separate race from humans, because they are. At least the original ones. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" Like, yeah, what are you guys talking about? They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem and do not know these things that have happened there in these days? Like, what, have you been under a rock?" It was quite the commotion. "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth, he replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in the word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel." Take Israel successfully into war and overthrow the Romans, is what they mean. "And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but they didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the woman said, but they did not see." Like, they did not see the angels. "He said to them, 'How foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all the prophets have spoken. Did not the Christ have to suffer these things and then enter the glory, and then enter his glory?' And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in the scriptures concerning himself." So he relisted everything the Messiah is supposed to be doing, like letting his work speak for himself. And that's my favorite approach to life. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus acted as if he was going to go farther, but they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. Like, don't put yourself in danger. Keep walking along the road dark at night. Camp out in the middle of the wilderness. You can leave in the morning. When he was at the table with them, he took the bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. So because they acted like they have this, "Oh, it's so sad." And he's like, "What do you mean it's so sad? Didn't he just do exactly what he said he was going to do?" And when they gave him kindness, not even recognizing them, he knew that they were pure of heart, so he could appear before them. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning with us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" So now they're starting to look at him going, "Wait, is this Jesus? I think this is Jesus. Is this guy Jesus? Can he do that? Oh my God, is that real?" So they got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. They got to go back to the other disciples and go, "Oh my God, look what happened." There they found the 11, the other apostles, which means 13 apostles, right? And those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and appeared to Simon." Then the two told what happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. So now they're talking about, wait a minute, Wait a minute. You say you saw him? They saw angels that said that he wasn't there. We saw him, but at first he didn't look like himself. Did you see this? Oh my gosh, what's happening here? And then while they were still talking about this, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, peace be with you. And of course, because that's part of the scriptures too, where two or more are gathered in my name. So two or more people sitting around in a room talking about Jesus, he shows up to hear what you're saying so that he can be with you. Because if you're talking about him and proclaiming him, you're in the faith. That means the Holy Spirit is upon you, and that means he needs to come and, bless you or sit with you or whatever he's going to do. They were startled and frightened, thinking they saw a ghost. Like maybe it wasn't actually him re-risen, just him as a ghost talking to them. He said to them, why are you troubled? And why do doubts rise in your mind? Look at my hands and feet, as it is I myself. Touch me and see. Does a ghost have flesh and bones, as you see I have? When he had said this, he showed them then his hands and feet. And while they still did not believe it because of joy and amazement, he asked them, do you have anything here to eat? Then they gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he ate it in their presence. Now, he doesn't need to eat because his body is risen, but he no longer needs the matter-based things to exist. It's just his body rose. So he ate to prove to them that the body was still there. It was still functioning. It's not a ghost. This right here is part of what I know I've been talking along the way. But it's energy. Okay? He's energy. Everything's energy. He had the ability to manipulate the molecules to make more wine, to make more bread and fish. In the spiritual plane, the 5D plane, the energy plane, people don't have to appear to you as who they were in the last flesh that you knew them. So you got to understand the concepts of what's being talked about if you want to be able to continue on the ascension path. You have to not just look at what's immediately in front of you and see the energy undercurrent underneath. When you become sensitive to the energy undercurrent that's underneath, you start questioning on a deeper level exactly what is going on here and why is it going on here in this way. You start moving forward on the ascension path. So let's take today and really examine everything that's going on. If somebody's acting in a particular way where they're being aggressive, why? Not just because, they're a big jerk. No. Why? Why do they feel like they can? What are they trying to accomplish? What are their woundings underneath that make them feel like that's appropriate? Do we have an opportunity to help them be a better person, not a bitter person? And when you be like, that's not really... Are you walking the Christ consciousness path or aren't you? Are you a Christian with a verb or a Christian with a noun? Now, I know it's like, shouldn't we be? No. Because it's not, yes, Christian with a noun because it's who you are. But the way you show it is with your actions, with your words, and with your treatment of others. So the only way you can really say you're a Christian and use it like a noun and mean it is by living it and acting it out. Christian with a verb. If you're not doing this part, you're not really this part, because he's instructing us to go out and help other people and help make the world a better place. That's what he died for. And if you're not out there tearing people down instead of building them up, then you're not doing what he wanted you to do. We're supposed to be cultivating our immaculate heart. And that only comes when we treat others the way he would want us to. with compassion, grace, and respect. So let's be the best people we can be today.